Welcome to this Circulytics webinar, a World Circular Economy Forum event. My name's Eleanor Ansell, and I'm a data analyst in the data and metrics team at the Foundation. We're really excited to be here today launching the second edition of this award-winning circular economy measurement tool. We're going to be hearing from a few different speakers from the MacArthur Foundation, as well as the Circular Economy Strategy Lead from H&M Group. They're going to take us through the story of Circulytics over the last year, the developments for the second version of the tool, as well as looking into the future of circular economy measurement. We'll be having a brief Q&A session at the end, so if you'd like to ask our speakers any questions, you'll need to post them in the chat box. If you're watching online on our website, you'll have to click through to YouTube in order to access the chat box function. You can do that by clicking on the title in the top left-hand corner of the screen, and then you'll see the chat box on the right-hand corner of your screen. So to kick us off, I'm joined by Andrew Morley, CEO of the Foundation, and he's going to talk to us about why Circulytics is a priority for EMF. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you, and welcome to everybody who's joining. Thank you for joining. The MacArthur Foundation works with a network of around 1,700 organisations, many of whom are businesses, and business is clearly a crucial element in the innovation and transformation towards a circular economy. And for business particularly, data is a really crucial issue. We need to have good data to understand where we are, what we need to do in terms of meeting goals and objectives, and for planning in the future. So Circulytics is really aimed to provide important data in this space. And it couldn't come really at a more opportune moment, I guess, or an important moment as the COVID-19 pandemic sweeps through the world. We've got an enormous challenge to the economy more broadly, and we've got an enormous amount of effort now focusing on how to innovate and transform business to operate in a new world, and how to actually identify new growth opportunities to re-kickstart the economy and to get things moving. And again, the circular economy represents a useful framework for thinking about how to direct that growth towards a better location, a better trajectory, a better vision. The opportunity for better growth is clearly possible through the application of circular economy thinking. And while some people think about the circular economy really in terms of being about waste and about better recycling, it's actually a much bigger idea. And it's an idea that's based on three principles. The first being the elimination of waste and pollution, the better use and use of materials, and thirdly, the regeneration of natural systems. All of these are driven by design of products, services and system solutions that enable the solutions to be thought of at the beginning of the process, not as an afterthought. So design is a crucial part as well. And we've seen over the last several years numerous research and many reports now that point to the value of the circular economy, the opportunity that it represents for creation of new value, but also the benefits that come from the application of these principles for better growth. For example, lowering the energy demand of the system, contributing to the climate agenda, contributing to the biodiversity agenda, and many other of the SDGs. So Circulytics, as I said, is a tool that we've developed to help us measure progress against the objectives of the circular economy. It's based on the principles I mentioned. It's been co-developed with many of the members of our network. We've had a huge take-up to date with signatories, and we're looking forward to seeing that scale further. And it is going to be continuously developed. We're going to work on Circulytics in the future to ensure that it's aligned with the major metrics and frameworks and platforms that are out there. We're going to do deep dives into sectors, and in particular look at how we can use Circulytics to help enable finance to orient capital towards circular economic innovation and companies that are driving this. So we're very much looking forward to working with many of you in the future on this, and you'll hear lots today about the release that we have today. And we very much look forward to your take-up of this tool and to your help in us refining it and scaling it globally. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. It's really great to hear about the bright future that Circulytics has. So Circulytics has been running for a year now, and while some of you might be familiar with the tool, for others, you might just be hearing about it. So later, we are going to hear about the updates for the second version, but first of all, I'm joined by Jarkko Havas, the Insights and Analysis Lead here at the Foundation, and he's going to take us through the development of Circulytics and the story so far. So welcome, Jarkko.
Thanks, Eleanor. Yeah, indeed, as Andrew already mentioned, Circulytics was developed, or is being still developed, together with our network of companies and also academic organizations. So just a little bit of where we actually started in 2019. It was actually started by a request from our network to have a way to measure reliably progress towards a circular way of doing business. We then started to work with about 13 companies in our network and brought in more as time passed, and now for worked with over 30 companies and academic institutions in our network to make version 2 a reality. Before we dive deeper into the matter at hand and what version 2 looks like, for many in our audience today who perhaps hear about Circulytics for the first time, a little bit what it actually measures. So we have broken down the overall score of circular economy performance into two categories called the enablers and the outcomes. And enablers really measures sort of forward-looking things, qualitative indicators on how much companies have put in effort to be more circular in the future by, for example, bringing circular economy to the core of their strategy. And Nikki, our project manager, will tell a little bit more about that later. The outcomes then measure how circular you are today. So for example, whether you are able to procure materials that are part of a circular economy, non-virgin materials, for example, and whether the products and services that you design are also part of a circular economy, and then for products can be used and reused over and over again, and in that way show a snapshot of how circular a company is today. So forward-looking component and then how circular you are today are the two big components of the score. Okay, so what happened in 2020? We launched the tool on the 14th of January of this year and are now launching version 2. But for version 1, we had already over 600 companies who signed up to using it. And as Andrew mentioned earlier, it's a factor of many things, and we think that the COVID crisis has really put circular economy at a place where it is a means to better growth, and many companies have then taken up Circulytics to guide them along that path to a more circular way of doing business. An interesting fact about those 600 companies is that almost a quarter of them are large. Brands that all of us recognize, and we put their threshold of over $1 billion USD of annual revenue, and over 100 companies like that have taken part. Just shows how circular economy is not just a niche thing for small organizations that are native to that way of doing business, although of course these companies are very important for the transition as well, but large companies that are trying to do this transition from the way they do business today to a more circular way of doing it. And finally, most of the companies who've signed up are not in that network of 1,700 companies that Andrew mentioned, but outside of that, and that just shows how broad the need for this topic is at the moment, and we think Circulytics has really been launched at a time where it really serves the needs of many organizations out there. And indeed, looking at where the companies are based that have signed up, most of them are based in Europe. Although many of these companies are large and have global operations, they have their headquarters in Europe. But we're happy to see that North America has been quite strong. 16% of all of the signups are from North America. And then on top of that, we have all of the continents represented in signups, except for Antarctica, for obvious reasons. But we are working to make Circulytics better cater for organizations that are not based in Europe, the US, or other more English-speaking regions, but elsewhere in the world. And Nikki will also tell us soon how we're going to do that. Looking at industries, these are now companies who've completed the assessment, so done the whole process from beginning to end, and we have 96 such companies in the first year of operations. And perhaps unsurprisingly, most companies are part of a product producing value chain that have to do with material flows, as that is really at the core of circular economy, to make sure that material flows are circular. Interestingly, the second biggest industry or industry cluster are services, where you may not even have your own material flows except for your office equipment, for example. And it's something that we've built in from the beginning for Circulytics to be able to measure how service companies are also part of a circular economy and a vital component to enabling that transition by, for example, producing software that enables materials tracking or other services that are really key to making materials stay in those loops. That's really at the core of what circular economy is. And then we have a long tail of companies in a variety of industries, and we're very happy that Circulytics has been picked up by companies in different industries with different business models, and that's really something that we worked towards from the beginning by working with companies in our network that are across the board, from chemicals companies to service providers to food producers, etc., to make sure that it really is relevant for everyone. A little bit about the score, what we see in the first year. So out of the 96 companies, an average score is a B, and B is right in the middle of the scale from A+ to E on the scale. Interesting point is that the enabler category, so the score that's forward-looking, qualitative things, is circular economy part of your strategy, and so on, is higher than how circular you are today. And that's quite obvious. It's a new thing for many companies, and we are looking forward to companies doing this assessment now year over year, and to see how that higher enabler score eventually will translate into a higher outcome score as well. And we see already from our beta test in 2019 all the way to now version 2 indication that that is the case for companies who really take circular economy into a priority and work on it. Little peek to what goes behind those averages. So when you look at company sizes, so each bar chart cluster is for one theme here, or category, or the overall score on the left-hand side here, and break that down into how different sizes of companies did based on their revenue, from smaller to larger, from left to right. You'll see that in the enabler, so the left-hand half of the bar chart, there is no real correlation between company size and how well they've scored. But when you look at the right-hand side, the rightmost bar chart cluster, there is quite a big difference between smallest companies and the biggest companies in output theme. And this measures your material flows that go out of your factories and your processes, the products you produce, the services you design, if you're an energy producer, it's the type of energy that you produce and whether that's compatible with the circular economy. And it just shows how not necessarily that larger companies are lagging behind, but that it's harder for larger companies to get the right type of data. And that's really an important starting point, to be able to look at your material flow data, your energy data, etc., in a way that you know how circular your company is. And that's really something that we've been working with many companies this year to see how that can be better done. To be actually able to know what the baseline is today, to be then able to track against that year on year going forward. And Eleanor, actually, who's sitting next to me, is going to lead a project where we dig in more into this data from year one and produce an aggregated sort of average data pack that's going to be publicly available for anybody to see and dig a little bit deeper into what year one showed. Just briefly then, the type of impact that companies have seen in doing this score in the first year. An example from Brambles, who is a logistics company, produces, for example, crates for logistics. They've taken Circulytics and translated that into their internal environmental performance targets. D.S. Smith, who is a packaging producer and also packaging reuser and recycler, they have taken Circulytics to talk about their achievements with their customers, and in that sense gotten a very different type of value out of their assessment than Brambles. And the third example is from Solvay, a chemicals company, who have used this score to have high-level conversations, strategic conversations in their organization about how circular economy should be and is now at the core of what strategy is for Solvay, and being able to use that as a tool to have those conversations. So very different kinds of value that companies have found, and we really look forward to seeing how this evolves in year two of our operations. Okay, so I'll now hand over to Nikki, our project manager, to talk about what's in store for year two and version 2 of Circulytics. Nikki.
Thanks, Jarkko. So just after we launched the first version of Circulytics at the beginning of this year, we were already thinking as a team, how are we going to improve it? And without much time to kill, we brought together a sounding board of 12 companies from the Foundations network to start the iteration process to launch Circulytics 2.0 with you today. And we had always planned to iterate Circulytics on an annual basis to really make sure it was up to date and reflecting the most current thinking around circular economy measurement. Because while the circular economy concept is gaining momentum, clear taxonomies and measurement tools are still really early in the making. So while we were proud of Circulytics 1.0, we knew we could make it even better. So what's changed? Well, we've been mindful only to make essential changes so that companies can still track their score on an annual basis, and so they can measure their year-on-year performance. Having said that, significant improvements have been made to the user experience and to the indicators. Generally speaking, Circulytics 2.0 offers a much more comprehensive picture of a company's circularity, and that's really what organizations want and what we wanted to deliver. So I'm going to give you an overview of 5 key updates that you can expect in Circulytics 2.0. The first is a bit about the changes to the indicators and the themes in the assessment. The second is this brand new theme of indicators on water flows. Third are some improvements we've made to the industry benchmarking process. Fourth are the adjustments that we've made to the letter scoring scale. And the 5th key update is the availability of the assessment in multiple languages. But first, to explain the changes to the indicators and themes, it will help for me to give you a bit more of an overview of how the assessment actually is formatted and what the resulting scorecard looks like. So there are 36 indicators in the assessment in total. And as Jarkko mentioned, half of these are qualitative indicators looking at the enabling conditions needed to transition to a circular business. This is in the enablers category. And the other half are more quantitative indicators looking at the outcomes of your circularity in your business today, the outcomes category. And within each category, the respective indicators are further categorized into themes, which I'll describe in further detail in a moment. So the actual output of going through the assessment as a business is a 1-page scorecard, which looks like this, and it gives you an overall letter score as a company and also breaks down your score by theme. In addition, we provide a score history over time. The idea is that companies do this on an annual basis in line with their other non-financial reporting, as well as industry benchmarking to know how you perform against your peers, and also an analyst commentary, which someone from our team will write for companies specifically with revenues over $1 billion annually. So looking then at the themes, in the enablers category, you have 5 themes of indicators which are asked to all types of companies, no matter what industry they're in. The first one of these is strategy and planning. So essentially asking, have you placed the circular economy at the heart of your strategy? The second is innovation. Are you innovating towards new circular economy products, systems, or services? The third, people and skills. Have you employed and trained people with the skills required to transition to a circular way of doing business? The fourth, operations. Have you invested sufficiently in your systems, processes, and infrastructure to support the change? And the fifth, external engagement. Are you actively promoting your circular economy initiatives and influencing those in your business sphere, such as your clients or your supply chain? So then in the outcomes category, previously in version 1, this was just split into 2 themes, inputs and outputs, which made interpretation of the theme level scores a challenge for the outcomes category. Now we've expanded this into 6 different themes that better describe the different topics of indicators in the outcomes category. And these themes therefore make the scorecard more informative and actionable for a company. The indicators that show up in the outcomes section will vary by business depending on the types of materials you use and the industry you're in comparison to the enablers category, where the question indicators are the same no matter what type of business you are. So just to give you a run through then of the themes in the outcomes category, the first is products and materials. And this is looking at whether the materials you procure and the products you design are supporting a circular economy. The second is services. So similarly, are the services you design and provide supporting a circular economy? The third, plant, property, and equipment assets. So these are your fixed assets which enable your company operations, such as logistics equipment. Are you procuring and decommissioning your assets in ways that support a circular economy? Next, there's water. This is the new theme that I'll tell you a little bit more about in a moment. So if you operate in a water-intensive industry, are you using water in a circular way? Then energy, are you procuring renewable energy? And if you're an energy provider, are you producing renewable energy? And finally, finance, specifically for financial institutions, are you proactively financing the transition to a circular economy? So that's to give you an overview of what's changed in the themes. And then within the indicators themselves, what they measure has pretty much stayed the same, but how you respond to them is now much more intuitive. As an example, the indicator on product design in version 1 of Circulytics was just a very open-ended question, essentially asking what % of your products are designed along circular economy principles, with not much more guidance than a definition of those principles. Now in version 2, we've broken down the response options into key methods of circular product design, such as design for reusability or repairability, to better guide the user in their response. And we've done this throughout the assessment to really make the user experience much easier. Right, so that is an overview of the updates to themes and indicators. Next, I want to tell you a bit about this new theme on water. So this is a topic that perhaps doesn't spring to mind when thinking of the circular economy. We often focus a lot on the use of materials. However, water could be the perfect example of a circular material, as it's really been circulated in nature since the onset of life. However, the ways in which we use water resources of our surrounding ecosystems are often not compatible with natural cycles. So water is really at the heart of the circular economy performance for industries that rely heavily on it, such as chemicals manufacturers or beverage companies. So the topics covered in the water indicators can be mapped against the 3 principles of the circular economy, which Andrew described earlier in the session. The first being to design out waste and pollution. So here we're asking, does your company prevent water pollution and valorize nutrients extracted from water? The second is keeping products and materials in use. Does your company reuse water, recycle water internally, cascade water, and reduce leakage? And the third, regenerating natural systems. Does your company allow natural systems to regenerate themselves through balanced water withdrawal and discharge, recharging of local aquifers, and the use of water reduction targets? So those are the first 2 out of 5 key updates. That's probably quite a lot of information to take in. If you have any questions so far, please do put them in the chat box on the YouTube Live, and we will do our best to get to them. So moving on to the third update. This is on industry level benchmarking. And industry level benchmarking is one of the powerful features of Circulytics that we offer in the scorecards. It allows companies to really get an idea of how they've performed compared to other businesses in their industry. And this benchmarking is based on anonymized data. So once enough companies in an industry have submitted their data through Circulytics, we can provide the benchmarking for that industry. Our team has developed a new industry classification system in Circulytics 2.0 to improve the relevance of industry level benchmarking, which we offer in the scorecard. So that is the third update out of 5 that I wanted to share with you. The fourth key update is on the letter scoring scale used to produce the overall company score and theme level score breakdown, which I showed you in the scorecard. So the scale now runs from A as the highest score to E as the lowest score, and the scale's been updated slightly to better reflect the scoring system used in other assessments, such as CDP. And you can read a bit more in detail about those updates in the method introduction document on our website. So the fifth and final update is on language accessibility. While the Ellen MacArthur Foundation's geographical focus has really started out in Europe, we have now teams set up in China, North America, and Latin America. And it was really important for us not to have English as a language barrier to the uptake of Circulytics globally. So we now offer Circulytics in Chinese, Portuguese, and Spanish, and we plan to continue to translate the tool into other languages as the opportunity arises. So that's a highlights reel from me of what to expect in this update of Circulytics, which is now live and ready to go. In a moment, my colleague Leo will be giving a bit of a demo of Circulytics and how you sign up for it. But first, we're joined by Ulrika Nordvall Bard, the Circular Economy Strategy Lead at the H&M Group. Ulrika was part of the sounding board that supported the development of Circulytics 2.0 and has used the tool to assess the circular economy performance of the H&M Group. She's going to share a little bit about the development of Circulytics from her perspective. Handing it over to you, Ulrika.
Thank you, Nikki. Do you see me now? Do you hear me?
We hear you, but I don't. Oh, now we see you.
You see me now? Because it was like it was freezing. Let's see. No, it's not working. Should I take off the video maybe for the moment?
You can go ahead. We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Thank you for being here. And I will tell you a bit about our journey with the Circulytics and how we have been part of the version 2, but also how we was working with the version 1. But first starting with what we think overall, we really believe that using Circulytics as a method will really help us to measure the circular score. Everything from how we are working with strategy and planning to actual scoring the material flow that we are having. And we see also that having Circulytics as a standardized circular economy measurement tool is a great benefit for companies in various industries. This will help to create the needed transition that we need for a circular economy, and it will help the companies to understand their circular scoring, as well as to know their current situation and to focus and what to focus on going forward. And briefly then to talk about the H&M Group's journey with Circulytics. This started when we became members of the sounding board. And that was approximately at the same time as the development of version 2 began. And important for us was always to help developing an easy, understandable tool that is synced and aligned with other global initiatives. And this is basically to simplify the data collection process for organizations. So what we believe overall is that version 2 is progressing really well, and we are welcoming all the updates. And for us, looking at the most important updates in the version 2 is that we believe that the structure is more clean and clear and with more relevant questions. And we're also welcoming the new structure of the outcomes, and now that it has a deep dive into design. And also we encourage the chapter around water. But looking back a bit and seeing how we were working with the version 1, when we were filling in the version 1, for us it was really a test. We needed to understand the tool and how it was working, but also we needed to understand how we could benefit from using this tool. And we needed to understand how our organizational structure would benefit if we would fill it in on a group level or on a sub-unit level. And sub-unit level for us, it's all the brands within the group. We also needed to understand what internal functions to engage with and what data to collect and how to extract this data. So to conclude how we are going to continue to work with Circulytics, we aim to fill in Circulytics on an annual basis. And this we will do in order to track the progress we are doing. We believe that we need to fill this in on a group level to get an overall score, but as well as filling it in on per sub-unit. And this is also to see the scoring per brand, but also to engage with multiple teams across our organization. And then we also will know where to scale up the efforts and where we today are taking leaps and how we actually can leverage them. So if we look going forward, we believe that important enablers for us to succeed will be to have a correct system support, to have the right processes and infrastructure in place. Yes, I think that was it, and now the video is working again. Did you hear me well?
Yeah, that was all loud and clear, thank you.
Oh, really good. Sorry for the difficulties with the video. I turn it off now and then, yeah.
Thank you, Ulrika. That's great to hear that Circulytics has been valuable for H&M. If you have any questions for Ulrika, remember that you can put them in the chat box, and our data analyst turned software engineer, Julia, will get back to them in that chat, or if not, we'll hear those questions at the end of this session. So next, I have Leo Nutter with me. He's the Insights and Analysis Digital Project Manager. And Leo is going to take us through what Circulytics will look like for your company account holder and how the tool works in practice. Leo.
Brilliant. Thanks, Elena. So for the next 4 or 5 minutes, I won't take too much time from the audience here today. I just want to give a quick run through of what the Circulytics journey looks like end to end. And of course, actually online as of today, there's a longer run through of that deep dive. So you can get a bit more of an insight into what the Circulytics survey looks like, should you and as and when you participate in Circulytics. I wanted to start off my 5 minutes that I have with you today just by checking out the Circulytics website. This is circulytics.com, and this, if you haven't received enough information about Circulytics, what it is, why you should do it, and indeed the changes from 1.0 to 2.0, this is where you can find out all of the information you need to take part. I wanted to point out in particular the resources tab. Here you can see there's 7 documents in each of the 4 languages that Nikki pointed out towards the end of her presentation. It's available in English, Chinese, Spanish, and Portuguese. Now, each of these documents do different things, but they are all really, really valuable for you to get to grips with the basics of Circulytics and to understand the finer details. So around the methodology that underpins the tool itself, a complete list of those 36 indicators that Nikki did mention, and indeed the definitions and examples that are dotted throughout the survey itself. And when you're equipped with all of that knowledge and you feel it's time to get going on your journey with Circulytics, you head over to the overview page. There's a big button that says apply to participate, and then your journey really begins. And this is what it looks like. 3 steps, a bit of basic company data information is asked of you, and indeed the information of the contact that will be collecting the data for the submission in the application form. Within a couple of days, we'll provide you with a full Circulytics survey account, which includes a unique link, a secure link with unique login credentials, and then you get going with your data collection and data submission. And it takes anywhere between a few days and a few weeks to collect and submit all of the requisite data, and that really depends on the size, the complexity, and indeed the existing data procedures that a company has in place. Ulrika mentioned that for H&M it was a bit of a learning experience and it took a few weeks to do so, and it really varies per company. And when you're ready to submit, you do so, and we receive your data. We then plug it into the Circulytics model, and within a couple of weeks you receive your results in the form of the bespoke Circulytics scorecard, which Nikki ran through just a few moments ago. I just wanted to, in the couple of moments that I do have left, mention and highlight that middle step. So let's take a little look at what the survey actually looks like. At the beginning, we ask for some basic company data. So this is the general information section, which pops up after you agree to the Circulytics terms of agreement. And here we just collect some basic information that helps Eleanor piece together the statistical yearbook that she'll be working on in the coming months. It allows us to cluster companies together. It allows us to set those benchmarks that provide that value for participating companies to compare against. And indeed, it tells the survey what sort of company you are, and that in itself dictates which indicators are displayed throughout the survey. For example, a company that doesn't use materials suitable for the technical or biological cycles won't see questions in Theme 6, Products and Materials. And once all that information is provided, we move on to the enablers category, or the 5 themes within the enablers category. This is the first indicator that everybody sees, and everybody sees all of the indicators, regardless of the company size or how they use materials. You'll notice actually on the top right there's an English drop-down, and here you can select either English, Spanish, Portuguese, or Chinese. And on the left-hand side you can see a table of contents which the survey itself is fully navigatable, so you can hop from theme to theme and upload data to parts that you already have data for. There's actually a couple of ways in which companies tend to collect the data. So either they collect all of the data offline first, using the indicator list I mentioned before in the resources tab, and then submit in one go in the Circulytics survey. So they may only be on the Circulytics survey for a number of hours, but collect data for weeks beforehand. Or they can submit bit by bit when they collect the data, because the survey platform itself does save the data as you go. but I must warn you that only one person should have access to the link because it's a single user platform. And once you've provided information for all of the enabler indicators, all 18 of them, as Nikki mentioned earlier, we move on to the themes within the outcome category. And one thing I didn't mention actually is you see these little pies, these percentage pies underneath each response option, and these dictate the score that you would get for any number associated with that response option, or indeed for qualitative questions if you were to select that response option. And so once you provide all of that data across the maximum of 36 indicators, you're ready to submit. And then once you do submit, as I mentioned a couple of moments ago, we provide you with the scorecard, which helps you, make better decisions internally to do business in a circular way. And that creation of the scorecard I did want to mention briefly was something that we've been working on since the beginning of the year. So the process by which we assess and analyze the data here in the Circulytics team has been updated. So we have now adopted a custom serverless data platform for the analysis of the company data, together with Julia, the software engineer that we have in the team, and indeed the technical consultancy company, DataTruth, who have been helping us build that software for Circulytics. And we're in a really good position now to be able to take on and process an increasing number of submissions that we're expecting for V2 and beyond. So I know that was a little over 5 minutes, but I know Jarko's itching to answer some questions from the online audience, so I'll yield the hot seat.
Thank you, Leo. So as Leo said, that was quite a lot of information, but if you would like to know anything more, then do head to our website at circulytics.com. There's a how to participate in Circulytics video there that will tell you everything you need to know, as well as that resource page. So we've got time for a few questions now. And I just wanted to bring Ulrika back in. We've had a question, what value do companies get from Circulytics, given that other non-financial reporting metrics already exist?
Should I answer that?
Yes, please, Ulrika.
Yes. Do you hear me well now?
Yeah, we do.
No, but first and foremost, I really believe that Circulytics should be seen as a method and a tool that will help companies assess their circular score. And that is really how we see it, that it can help us in our journey going forward. But then I also believe that we should be inspired, but also engaged with what other companies within both our industry, but also in other industries are doing, and how we can increase our scoring.
Thank you. Jarko, so once companies are scored and their scores are made publicly available, is there an option to keep them private if they don't want to publicize their scores?
Yeah, that's actually the default. So we, the foundation, will keep all the information secure and confidential. So all the systems and what's going on in the background that Leo mentioned is we made sure that it's very secure. So data stays safe, and you can see how that happens also in the terms and conditions. But what we do with the scorecard is that we give companies a license to their own scorecard, and they can then decide whether they want to disclose that score or not. But EMF, the foundation, will not do that without, of course, consent from the company in question. And so also all the benchmarks and the statistics are done in a way where companies will stay anonymous. So we make sure that we have enough data to make that the case.
Yeah. Another question for you, Jarko.
Right.
Are there any external verifications?
So we don't require external verifications. Many companies, of course, have audited data, material flow data, and maybe Ulrika, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. We of course encourage companies to do that, so to make sure that data is reliable, and especially if you want to disclose your score or anything associated with that. I think it's just good practice to make sure that that is indeed of the right quality, and so we encourage it, but we don't require it. I don't know, Ulrika, if you want to add to that.
Yes, I mean, we have, of course, some part of our data is, of course, verified by a third party. But if I take, for example, another initiative that you are driving, the New Plastics Economy initiative, currently we are not verifying this by a third party, but that we really aim to. So I agree with you, Jarkko. I think that the ambition level should really be to have this verified by a third party. And that is what we do with the majority of our data.
And again, Jarkko, are you at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation planning on having local support to provide guidance for companies taking Circulytics? So consultancy companies that guide companies through the service?
Yeah, so one of the priorities we're looking to develop for next year is a train-the-trainer program for organizations that want to help other organizations to act on their Circulytics score. So, for example, consulting companies who would take the score and then help the company in question to sort of prioritize and make a project out of the next step in their journey to becoming a more circular company. And we don't have a concrete plan in place of when that will happen or what it will look like, but it is something that we will start looking into right after version 2 is launched, which is pretty much tomorrow. So we hope to be able to communicate more on that in the coming months.
We'll wait and see then.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about companies using the tool, but we've had a question whether or not governments are also using Circulytics.
So yes, to some extent. So if you're a government public sector organization that's run as its own entity, you could use Circulytics to assess that. So you could assess yourself with it. Some of the questions, of course, are with company private sector language. So you need to think what a CEO is for your organization, for example. But that's definitely doable. What we've done then for public sector otherwise is to take learnings from Circulytics and work with public sector, for example, organizations that work with EU or in EU to inform what a sort of national government circular economy measurement set of indicators should look like, and try to mirror what we've done in Circulytics on a country level. So their Circulytics wouldn't work too well. You can't measure a country with it, but we can take some of the learnings to make sure that things are aligned. We measure companies in a way that is then mirrored with how we measure the economy in a way. In the end, we are talking about the whole economy transition. So it's important that these levels meet in the middle.
And looking forward, what are the next developmental priorities for Circulytics?
So a couple of things for next year. So of course we'll continue working with Ulrika and others to make the method itself better and continuously improve on how we ask questions, how we measure different things, and whether all the things are covered that is important for a company. For example, we added theme in water this year. But on top of that, we're looking to connect the results scorecard with the sustainable development goals. So nothing new for companies to do in their assessment, but we would just provide an additional page almost in the scorecard to have an indication on how these activities that companies display through their assessment then would help them contribute to the sustainable development goals. So that's something we're looking into really starting now to see how that would work. Again, we'll communicate once we know better. And then working with financial institutions and working with non-financial metrics standard efforts to bring circular economy and Circulytics to those discussions to make sure that circular economy and Circulytics is used in decision making in in the financial industry as well, a priority for us in the coming year.
And how do you see that working, given that non-financial accounting is being standardized?
Yeah, so indeed, the time is really now, and we think circular economy is a means to other ends, so to fight climate change, eliminate pollution and waste. All of these kind of environmental goals are well sort of achieved with circular economy means, and that's why we want to make sure that it's represented in these standards as well. And I don't know, Ulrika, if you have a view on that, how central circular economy is for you, and therefore for sort of any non-financial metrics in general that you are or would be doing, and whether you see a role for circular economy there.
Yes, I mean, circular economy as well as the climate is on highest priority for our organization. And I mean, we are already today reporting into different initiatives, both related to climate, but also to circularity. So therefore also I think it's so important that Circulytics is aligned with that. So the data that the companies are already collecting is synchronized and aligned, so you don't have to do double reporting. And I think that we have a good progress. And I know also that you are looking into other initiatives like yours, Make Fashion Circular, for example, or New Plastics Economy, to see that this is aligned with other initiatives, and that we only welcome.
Great. Thank you. And indeed, I think to add to that also a little bit is that this new water theme, we've made sure that as far as possible, the indicators are aligned, for example, with CDP's water indicators, that where we don't need to reinvent something, we don't. And we just add there elements that make it into a circular economy set of indicators to cover what circular economy of water means. And so we've been quite conservative in adding elements to those indicators, but just using existing ones where it makes sense also to make sure that we cover circular economy, but where sort of existing indicators already exist, we use them or similar ones, so that indeed the data that companies already have can be used as much as possible as is to also measure their circular economy performance.
Yeah, and like you said, the results can even be used for more than one reason, so to measure your circular economy performance and your alignment with SDGs.
Right, that's right, yeah.
A bit more of a technical question about filling out the survey. If you're a company with global operations, can you fill out the survey for only one business unit that covers one region, or does it have to be for the entire group?
So we would highly recommend to do it on a group or a whole company level, just because that's how it's designed, and you have the option to respond as a whole company or by business units or subunits, as we call them, because it could be a business unit or a region, and you as a respondent then define how you want to respond in those. And so if you want to highlight a certain region, you could split your company into that region and all the rest, and see how that specific region is doing in comparison with the rest of your company. And when you do that and your subunits cover the entire company, or your regions that you choose to cover the entire company, we can then also aggregate the data onto company level and create you 3 scorecards in this case: overall company scorecard, the region scorecard that you highlight, and then the rest of the company, so that you can see how that looks for your company. And I think, again, bringing this back to Ulrika, I think you had something like that in mind for version 2, where you would use the different brands as subunits and respond by brand in the next edition then when you go through the assessment.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we will of course have an overall group scorecard, exactly like you were saying, Jarkko, that they're important, but also to see the scoring per brand, and how we can see deviations, or where we need to take a leap or other parts. So I think that's very important to have at the subunit as well. What we are going to do now our next step will of course see that nothing falls behind the shares when we are doing this, and we are already in 2 weeks we are having a kickoff for the internally to talk about how we are going to fill in Circulytics now for version 2.
Great.
And we've got one last question. So how does the scorecard help companies develop action plans and strategies to become more circular? Maybe Jarkko, you could answer in general, and then Ulrika, if you give how you've used that version 1 scorecard specifically. So Jarkko, do you want to go ahead and go first?
Sure, yeah. So I think this is really company dependent. I briefly touched on the different ways that companies have used their scorecard and just the whole assessment process. Some things that jump to mind are going through the different themes has sort of been eye-opening for some organizations where they realize that they haven't really, for example, brought their employees along and explained or brought employees to the planning process on how does circular economy affect their job and their department. As an example, it's been used to create internal tracking for environmental performance. It's been used to having strategic conversations with the strategy department or the CEO, amongst others. And that's really what we are keen to always hear. How have companies found the value from using their score? And we look forward to more stories in version 2 indeed to see what's most useful. And of course then, based on that feedback, we'll also make the score better, like we now did with the different themes and outcomes. They are really based on the feedback that make it more actionable, the score, and hopefully that will be helpful in version 2.
So Ulrika, did you want to just comment on how H&M used their version 1 scorecard?
I mean, I would rather like to say that what we see now that we need to put in place after version 1, that is to secure that we have the right data input. And I think you put it very well earlier when you were talking, Jarkko. You were saying that larger companies, they are actually struggling with getting the right data in place and to extract this data. So this is a learning for us that we need to secure this, as well as secure to have the right processes in place to make this as smooth as possible for the ones collecting this data.
Yeah. Thank you.
But also, but I would also like to say, I think it's a great roadmap to have to see where you should accelerate your circular economy ambitions, with everything from how you educate your staff and so on. So that is really good.
Yeah, and hopefully building on that year on year. Thank you everyone for joining. I hope that session has been helpful. There was a lot of information that we went through, so if you need to learn anything else or go back over the how-to video on our website, then do go there. And most importantly, head to our website if you want to sign up to measure your own company's circularity performance. Thank you.